Hey, good morning. 5 a.m. Mester Scrum. Hope you're doing well today. I think I say that every day, don't I? Welcome to be here. Happy to be here this morning. Get to go back in the office. So it's be a fun day. So today I want to talk about something. There was a question yesterday. It's going to be a 4-part series this week. I'll be today and through Friday. And it's about systemic racism, gender, or other biases. What can a Scrum Master do in sprint planning as part of that? Here's a comment I got. I'm going to share the comment from the other day, and I'm going to show this one. So Feluso Ambrose, I called him Ambrose in the show because it was easier at the time. What can Scrum Masters do to tame systematic racism, gender, accent biases, as it sometimes impacts planning? So we're going to talk about that. I didn't want to give it a short answer, and I really thought about it, because when you talk about this stuff as a coach, you just can't give a glib answer all the time, right? You have to sit down sometimes and think about it and give some thought to it before you provide answers. So I want to talk about a couple things. It may be a little reality check to some of everyone, but I think it'll be a good one. So we're going to do that today. We're going to talk about what can a Scrum Master do to fight systemic racism. And I'm not going to say there's always racism, but there's other things that influence it. And we're going to talk about that too. So it's not always that. It's other things that cause that problem that could be perceived as racism, genderism, and accent. Like people want to have accents, they think less of them. So we'll talk about that today. And sometimes it really is. So let's go with that. So it's 5 a.m. Mester Scrum Show. I am Greg Mester, Scrum Master and Agile Coach. And we talk about Scrum and Agile in a practical and tactical way. This is going to be kind of practical and tactical. How do you solve this problem? And go with that, right? And bring value to the customer. Because when you have these distractions, your team can't bring value to the customer. So that doesn't help anybody. And we want to get home to family and friends because we don't want to spend every minute of our day doing stuff. But sometimes it's good. So let's look at this question again. I'll bring this back up. So I'm showing this question, and I will message Feluso Ambrose when I post this up on LinkedIn. So this is on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. It's going to be recorded. You can get there. It'll be in podcast later today also. So what can Scrum Masters do to tame systemic racism, genderism, accentism, biases? They should put the word biases, as it sometimes impacts. I wonder if I can edit. Can I edit it? Let's see if I can edit it. You don't know if it'll fit. Bias. B-I-A-S. Yeah, there you go. Let me do it. Save it to save. And okay, so I'm showing that on the screen, the question. So just a reminder, accent bias, as they sometimes impact planning. So I wrote some things, so you're going to have to bear with me a little bit, because I did want to write some key points that I was thinking about. And this will be, again, a 4-part series response to that, because there's a lot of things you can do and a lot of things that people don't do that causes this to occur in this system. I mean, everyone wants to blame other people for this problem. I'll be honest with you. I look at the Scrum Masters and the Agile coaches that are there for blaming this thing to happen, even myself, because I've been there. But what was more of a hero syndrome, as far as that goes, it could be interpreted as a bias for others, and which also can come out, right? So I'm not saying there is no racism in this stuff. I'm not saying there's no gender issues, no other issues, and biases that come up. They're there. They exist. They're not as blatant as when I was in my 20s. I had one engineer walking down. I still remember to this day, walking down between buildings, and the engineer says, "I wish all women weren't engineers. They shouldn't be in engineering. They should be home, whatever." I turn and go, "What the F is your problem?" Right? So that is a case where when it's really clear cut is the time for a Scrum Master or anybody to say, wait a minute, and catch your attention. It says, I don't like that, and I don't agree with you totally. We could debate it, but I totally disagree with you. So that's one thing when it's blatant like that. When it's come out, you have to confront it and be out front. I'm sorry, you just do. Another example would be way back when I used to tutor kids, and in high school, in underprivileged school or unserviced school, a lot of kids that needed help, which is basic math and English and stuff like that. And the one kid I was tutoring, he had deformed teeth. If you saw him, you would develop a bias. Well, some people would. I'm not saying everyone. Develop a bias that this kid can't learn. And I'm working with him. And within 5 minutes, I realized, dude, you're way too smart to be in the class you're right in right now for math, because he picked up on what I taught him because I spent some quality time with the individual for like 5 minutes. It really just took 5 minutes. And he picked up on everything I did. He just never had anybody to spend any time with him, but he had perfect capability of mastering it and being a higher level class than he was in. I had a couple students that were like that. They just needed someone to spend the time. And that's what it takes. Scrum Masters have to spend the time with people to overcome these biases that come up. You can't do glib and glib. Oh, I just do ceremonies. Oh, I just make sure the velocity is good. Oh, I just make sure. That's not going to fix these biases that we're talking about. What can a Scrum Master do to tame? So just doing the events doesn't fix this problem. Okay. So you have to engage in what you're going to be doing. So one of the things, and this is one of 4. So part of it, I'm sorry, I do have to read this stuff. Part of it is designing teams so one person's biases do not dominate the conversation. Okay. If you allow a system like I said, the heroism, where the one hero does everything, approves everything, runs everything through them, you're going to develop these biases as part of that if you let that occur. So you can't let that happen, right? But a lot of teams do. A lot of people, a lot of organizations create these center points that then these biases, whatever they would be, they could be biases and they think you're an idiot, right? Then you're not as good as them. And you're not as good. And it could be just straight as that. They just don't have time. They feel like they have to tell everyone what to do. That is where you set up that system. So you got to design it so it doesn't. If you watch all my shows, I provide lots of tips and tricks on how to minimize that if you follow the basic stuff. So let's say, it is a Scrum Master's role to set up good team dynamics. I'm going to watch the time too, and why I had to break this into 4 parts, because it's a lot to cover, and you don't want to be light on how you cover this topic. First off, I'm going to say, Scrum Masters, check yourself at the door. What are you doing? So, do you treat team members as children? Okay. If you're the Scrum Master and you treat people as children on the team, you're just as bad as the other people. You are setting up the situation. You are doing a bias to your team because you're treating them as children. Do you challenge everything they say during daily Scrum? Do you say, ask them a question every time they talk? These are biases that you as a Scrum Master are encouraging. And by you doing it, you're encouraging others to produce their biases of the organization, because they look at you as a Scrum Master treating everyone on the team as children, right? And a lot of times when people treat people as children, other people might see it as a racist, a sexist, a accent issue, or some kind of bias related to their education, where'd you go to college. So when you do that, you're encouraging this behavior. So check yourself at the door as a Scrum Master. So fix it with yourself first. Like, are you you know, are you holding one-on-one ones with people? Are you meeting with them to find out what their fears are, what their issues are, and having discussions? If you're not going to prevent this from happening. Like I said, during daily scrum, and I think I'm going to talk about daily scrum tomorrow, but be careful. So yeah, we're going to talk about daily scrum tomorrow. So you're doing one-on-ones, right? Are you working to understand where the biases are coming from? Designing interactions to minimize bias. Okay. Are you doing that legwork? Are you designing those interactions to minimize the bias? And we're going to go through all that stuff, planning everything as we get through this. Are you examining fear? Are you meeting with people's supervisors to understand what pressures are being applied and people are using blame to cover their weaknesses or mistakes? Are people reacting because they're afraid of getting blamed for the team not producing and they're being held accountable? Have you met with their managers to find out what the accountability is, what the manager's thinking? You have to do this. This will help prevent the bias because then you can team up with somebody so they don't let their biases come out and you can work together with them to produce a better dynamic. And I said this before. So many Scrum Masters think their job is only about events, project manager reports, or metrics, and they don't take time to dig when the problems surface, right? Agile and Scrum are great for surfacing dysfunction. So when we do this Agile Scrum, it's going to surface. So tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit about daily Scrum, day 3, sprint planning, and then how do you build trust on day 4. So we're going to go in a couple of things. So my thing in today as a Scrum Master, check yourself at the door that you don't create a situation, a bias creation in the team dynamics by questioning everyone's stuff, by treating your team as children, and by not finding out what the fears are and what the way people are measured in their job. People generate fears in their job. They're fearful for their job. People can talk all the crud they want, but they are fearful about losing their job. And fear causes a lot of people to create these biases to cover for what they're fearful of. So what is manifesting? You have to dig a little bit deeper, but this is part 1 of this question. From Ambrose. I like using Ambrose. I like the name Ambrose. It's a good name. What can Scrum Masters do to tame systematic racism, genderism, accent bias, as it sometimes impacts planning? So this, again, is a 4-part thing because when you talk about these subjects, it's very serious and it really can't be a quick little answer. So it's going to be a 4-part. Just remember, first step, check yourself. Are you treating your team with bias? Are you treating them as children? Are you telling them what to do? Are you letting them self-organize? This is what you need to self-check yourselves. Any Scrum Master, any Agile coach needs to look at that way. And sometimes you got to ask the tough questions. I did that the other day to somebody. They were giving me excuses left and right of why they can't do something. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not an excuse. They probably didn't like what I said, but it is what it is. So part 1 of 4, we're going to do 1 through the rest of the week. Tomorrow, we're going to talk more about daily Scrum and stuff like that, some of the events. And then day 3, we're going to talk about sprint planning, which is kind of related to what the question was. And day 4, we're going to talk about trust, and we're going to build that up. Okay. So I hope that helped. I hope you have a great day. And I want to wish everyone happy scrumming and take care. And always remember, there's always a past. Sometimes it's not exactly what you think it is. People put those terms and labels on stuff that there's other deeper issues going on that need to be investigated. And it can't be just a glib answer. So that's why this is going to be a 4-part series. With that, I say take care, everyone. I wish you the best, and we'll see you tomorrow. See ya.